Jack stood on the edge of the alien world, staring at the vast horizon. The sky was unlike anything he had seen before, filled with colors that didn't exist on Earth. The air was thick with an unknown scent. Something fresh, yet slightly metallic. The ground beneath his feet felt soft, almost like it was alive, pulsing ever so slightly with each step he took. He had been traveling for what felt like forever. But now, standing on this strange, far-off planet, Jack realized that he was about to face the unknown. No one had ever come to this planet before, and he was the first human to set foot here. This was a place where no lies could exist. The aliens, creatures of pure honesty, had a strange ability. They could detect any falsehood with a single glance. Jack smiled to himself. He had always been good at lying. He had lied his way through life on Earth, lying to get the job, to get the girl, to get whatever he wanted. On this new planet, however, lying was a sin, something no alien could even fathom. For a moment, Jack thought he might be at a disadvantage. But the thought quickly passed. He wasn't here to be a saint. He was here to make his fortune, to get whatever he could from these naive beings. After all, even a world of truth could be manipulated if you knew the right tricks. The alien creatures that populated this world were unlike anything Jack had seen. Their skin shimmered with soft hues of blue and purple, and their eyes glowed with a pale, almost otherworldly light. They moved with grace, every step calculated and precise, as if they were part of the planet itself. They walked among the tall, translucent trees that dotted the landscape, and their voices echoed in the stillness, soft and melodic, almost as if speaking in a language Jack couldn't understand. Yet he felt no fear. Instead, he felt curiosity, excitement, and an overwhelming sense of power. A small group of aliens approached him, their eyes studying him intently. They were tall, even taller than he was, and they moved in unison, like a school of fish gliding effortlessly through water. They didn't say a word. They didn't need to. Jack could feel their thoughts pressing against his mind, probing him, reading him. They were searching for his thoughts, his emotions, even his intentions. He knew that on this planet, nothing could be hidden, but Jack wasn't afraid. He had an edge they didn't know about. His lies were his weapon. He could make them believe anything. He could tell them he was the chosen one, that he had the power to change the course of their history. And why wouldn't they believe him? He had always been good at convincing people. He smiled and straightened his posture, standing tall as the aliens continued to watch him. One of them, the tallest of the group, stepped forward. Her voice, when she spoke, was like the wind itself, soft yet powerful. "You are not from here," she said, her words flowing effortlessly, as if she had been waiting to say them for eons. Jack nodded, a playful grin forming on his lips. "No, I'm not," he replied, his voice steady. "But I'm here to help. I'm here to show you. Something you've never seen before?" The aliens didn't react, their faces unreadable. They simply stared at him, their eyes piercing into his very soul. Jack could feel the weight of their gaze, like they were stripping away every layer of his being, revealing the truth that lay underneath. It was a strange sensation, unlike anything he had ever felt. But he wasn't worried. Not yet. "Us," the alien repeated, her voice full of curiosity. "How can you help when you do not even understand our world?" Jack's grin widened. "I may not know everything about your world, but I do know one thing." He leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a whisper, as if sharing a secret with only her. "I know how to get what I want. And right now, I want to help you." The alien blinked, her eyes narrowing. She could sense that Jack wasn't telling the whole truth. She could feel the lies coming from him, even though they were subtle and masked with charm. She had never encountered anyone who lied so effortlessly, who could manipulate the truth with such ease. It fascinated her, yet at the same time, it unsettled her. Jack straightened and took a step back, looking around the strange world that stretched out before him. The vast plains, the glowing trees, and the creatures that moved silently in the distance. It was all so beautiful, so pristine. But Jack wasn't here for beauty. He was here for power, for wealth, and for influence. He wasn't going to let something as simple as truth stand in his way. The aliens were watching him closely now, studying him with curiosity. They didn't understand him, and perhaps that was what made him so interesting to them. It was the one thing they couldn't predict. It's the one thing that didn't fit into their perfect world. Jack chuckled softly to himself. He had always been an outsider, and now he was about to make that work to his advantage. He wasn't going to let a planet full of truth-tellers get in his way, not when he knew how to lie, how to bend the truth to his will. The game had just begun, and Jack was going to win. Jack's arrival on the alien planet had been nothing short of extraordinary. He had passed the tests, met the aliens, and now was beginning to feel the weight of the strange new world pressing in on him. The allure of the planet's pristine beauty and the aliens' intrigue in him made him feel like the center of attention. Yet in the midst of it all, Jack could sense a deeper challenge lurking, one he hadn't anticipated. The aliens were perfect in their own way. They had mastered everything from advanced technology to profound wisdom, yet they were unable to hide a single lie. There were no false smiles, no hidden motives. Honesty was the fabric of their existence. Jack's charm, however, was built on a foundation of lies, and that was something they would have to learn to understand as Jack mingled with the alien society. He realized something else: his ability to lie was not just an advantage, it was his only edge. Here, lies didn't just distort reality, they could reshape it entirely. In a place where everything was governed by truth, Jack realized that telling a lie, however small, could be the most powerful tool he had. The question was, how far could he push this? How deep could he go without exposing himself? One morning, Jack found himself in the grand plaza of the alien city, surrounded by gleaming white buildings and smooth, crystal-like structures that seemed to hum with an energy of their own. A small crowd had gathered, and Jack could feel their eyes upon him. Among them was the alien leader Sarath, whose shimmering skin reflected the light from the twin suns above. Eyes, though beautiful, held an intensity that unsettled him. She was watching him closely, studying his every move. Jack had heard whispers that Sarath was more than just a leader. She was a protector of their world's integrity, someone who believed deeply in the power of truth. If anyone could see through Jack's lies, it would be her. And yet here he stood, ready to test his luck. A voice broke his concentration. It was soft, almost melodic, and it came from a young alien woman standing at the center of the plaza. She smiled at Jack, her eyes wide with curiosity. "You're different," she said, her voice like a song. "You don't fit in here." Jack looked her up and down, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "Different," replied, his voice smooth. "But that's exactly why I can help you. You see, I'm not like everyone else. I understand things you can't even imagine." The woman tilted her head, clearly intrigued. "What things?" Jack leaned in closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. "I know things about your world that you haven't even begun to realize. Your planet is perfect, yes, but there's one thing: you're missing something that could make it even better. Something that could give you more power, more influence, more control." Her eyes widened slightly, and Jack knew he had her attention. The others around them had stopped talking, all listening intently. He could feel their eyes on him, sensing that they were hanging on his every word. "What is it you're talking about?" she asked, her voice full of wonder. "Lies," Jack said with a grin, his heart pounding with excitement. "Lies are your missing piece. With a little deception, you could have everything you ever wanted. Imagine a world where you could manipulate the truth just enough to get what you need to get ahead." There was a long silence. The young woman stood still, as if processing what Jack had just said. Around them, the crowd murmured in confusion. Jack had crossed a line, he could feel it. These aliens, who had never encountered a lie before, were now being introduced to the most powerful weapon in his arsenal. "But we don't lie," she said slowly, shaking her head. "Lies are ... impossible here." Jack shrugged, leaning back. "That's because you don't know how to use them. You've never had to." A ripple of tension ran through the crowd. The young woman stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "You are lying now, aren't you?" Jack chuckled. Maybe not. But how would you know? You don't understand the art of deception. I could tell you anything, and you wouldn't even know if it's true. Sareth, who had been watching silently from the sidelines, finally spoke up. Her voice was calm, but there was a sharp edge to it. "Is it true, Jack? What you're saying?" she asked, her eyes locked on his. "Can lies really make this world better, or are you just trying to manipulate us?" Jack felt a surge of adrenaline. He had been caught. Sarah's piercing gaze could see straight through him. She knew what he was doing. But Jack wasn't afraid. He had come too far to back down now. "I don't know if lies can make it better," he said smoothly. "But I know they can make it more ... interesting. The world you live in is too perfect, too predictable. Right. Lies could bring the unpredictability you need." The crowd was silent. Jack's words hung in the air, a heavy tension building around him. The aliens were fascinated, but they were also scared. They had never been challenged in this way. No one had ever dared to bring lies into their perfect world. "I'll show you," Jack said with a confident smile. "I'll show you what lies can do." As Jack turned to walk away, he knew the first steps of his plan had already begun. He had planted the seed of doubt in their minds. The game had started, and Jack was going to win no matter what it took. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the alien city. The translucent buildings that had once seemed so beautiful now appeared cold and distant. Jack had been feeling on top of the world his lies had worked. Wonders and the aliens were starting to listen to him in ways he had never imagined. But there was something in the air that day, something he couldn't quite place. The tension was thick, palpable, like a storm was approaching. But there was no rain in sight. Jack had spent the last few days growing bolder, testing the limits of his influence over the aliens. His lies were becoming more elaborate, more dangerous. And yet, it felt too easy. The leaders of the alien world were beginning to show interest in his ideas, intrigued by the power that lies could give them. But Jack wasn't naive enough to think that everything would continue without consequences. He had a feeling that the cracks in their perfect world were starting to show. It wasn't long before Sareth, the alien leader, sent for him. "Jack," she said, her voice carrying an unspoken weight. "Come with me." Her tone wasn't demanding, but it wasn't an invitation either. There was a coldness to it, an urgency. Jack followed her without hesitation, knowing that whatever was about to unfold would change everything. Sareth led him. Through the winding streets of the city, the soft glow of the alien buildings casting strange, flickering lights on their path, they walked in silence, the air between them thick with unspoken words. Finally, they arrived at a large open courtyard, where a circle of alien elders stood waiting. The moment Jack stepped into the circle, he felt that something was different. The atmosphere had shifted. It was as if he were being judged. "You've been spreading lies," Sareth said, her voice no longer soft but sharp and commanding, "and we've let it go on long enough." Jack stood tall, his confidence unwavering. "Lies? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just helping." "You see things in a different light." The elders exchanged looks, their glowing eyes flickering with something Jack couldn't read. "You're not just helping us, Jack." One of the elders, a tall, regal figure, spoke up. "You're causing disruption. You've introduced something we cannot control, something that threatens our very existence." Jack's heart skipped a beat. This was it. The confrontation he had known was coming. Sareth stepped forward. "You have misled us, Jack. You've told us that lies are the key to power, but you don't understand what you've done. Lies aren't just a tool to manipulate others, they're an infection. You've poisoned our minds with the idea that truth isn't enough." The words hit Jack like a slap to the face. He had been so caught up in his plan, so blinded by his desire for power, that he hadn't considered the consequences of his actions. These aliens were pure, in their own way. They had no need for lies, for manipulation. In their world, truth was the foundation of everything they did. And now, Jack had shattered that. "You've made us question our very nature," Sareth continued, her voice colder than ever. "And now you must prove that you can live with what you've done." Jack swallowed hard, but he didn't show fear. Instead, he looked Sareth in the eye and smiled. "You're overreacting. If you want to survive in a world like this, you need to learn how to use lies, just like everyone else." Truth doesn't get you ahead anymore. Lies do. The elders took a step forward, their eyes narrowing. You claim to understand power, but you don't know what it means. You've only seen the surface. You think lies give you control, but in the end, they will destroy you. And us. Sareth raised her hand, and the circle of elders closed in. Around Jack, there was no escape. We will give you a chance, Jack, she said. But know this, if you can't prove that lies have value, that they can truly bring power to this world, you will be banished. You will lose everything. The challenge was clear. Jack had pushed too far, and now he had to show that his lies were more than just a manipulation. He had to prove that they could offer something more than destruction. That they could, in some twisted way, make the aliens stronger. But deep down, Jack knew the truth. He wasn't sure if his lies could fix this. Very well, Jack said, his voice steady. I'll show you. But you're making a mistake if you think the truth is enough to save this planet. Lies are power. Sareth didn't respond. Instead, she turned and gestured for the elders to follow her. The circle parted, and Jack was left standing in the center, his mind racing. He had been given a challenge, one that he had never faced before. It wasn't just about getting what he wanted anymore. It was about proving that the lies he had sown could be turned into something real, something worth believing in. As Jack walked away from the courtyard, he realized that the stakes had changed. This wasn't just a game anymore. It was a battle for survival, battle for control. If Jack couldn't prove his lies had value, he would lose everything. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind to Jack. He had always been in control of his world, manipulating people with lies, twisting their perceptions for his own gain. But this world, with its deep-rooted commitment to truth, was like a new kind of battlefield. He had never been challenged like this before. And the weight of Sareth's words still lingered on his mind. Jack had always believed that lies were the key to power. That deception could unlock the doors to limitless possibilities. Yet here, in a place where every word was laid bare and nothing was hidden, he was starting to feel the consequences of his actions. For the first time in his life, his lies didn't just affect the people around him, they were beginning to affect him. The more he lied, the more hollow he felt, as if each untruth was draining a piece of his soul. The alien world, so perfect in its honesty, was beginning to change, and Jack was at the heart of it. The subtle shifts were hard to ignore. His lies had caused a ripple effect, something he hadn't expected. The very fabric of their society, built on a foundation of truth, was beginning to fray. Jack's influence was spreading, but it wasn't just power he was gaining, it was chaos. The aliens were starting to doubt their own belief in truth. For the first time, they were questioning everything they knew. One evening, as Jack sat in the central plaza, contemplating the weight of his situation, he was approached by the young alien woman who had spoken to him before. Her name was Lyra, and her radiant violet eyes reflected a mixture of curiosity and concern. She had been watching him from afar, trying to understand the human who could lie so effortlessly in a world where lies were impossible. "Jack," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of a question. "You've told us that lies are power, but what are you truly trying to accomplish here?" Jack looked up at her, a small smile curling at the corners of his lips. "Power, of course. Control. A place where I can get what I want without anyone standing in my way?" Lyra's gaze softened, but there was something else in her eyes, a glimmer of understanding. "I don't think that's it, Jack. I think you're searching for something more. You're using lies to hide from something." "But what is it?" Jack's smile faltered. No one had ever questioned him like this before, not like Lyra. She wasn't just looking at him, she was looking through him. Her words cut deeper than any challenge he'd faced from the elders. She was right, though. Jack hadn't come here for power alone. He had been running from something for as long as he could remember, and his lies were just a shield, a way to hide from the truth he feared most, his own inadequacies. "I'm not running from anything," he said, his voice more guarded now. "I've just figured out how to make things work in my favor. Lies get you what you want. That's all there is to it." Lyra stepped closer, her presence calming despite the storm that raged inside Jack. "But you're wrong, Jack. Lies don't create power. They create emptiness." And I think that's what you're feeling right now. The emptiness. Chest tightened. It was hard to breathe, as if Lyra's words had unlocked something deep within him, something he had been avoiding for years. He wasn't used to being vulnerable, to facing the truth about himself. But here in this place where lies had no power, his own fears were impossible to hide. "Why are you telling me this?" Jack asked, his voice rougher than he intended. "What do you care?" Lyra's gaze never wavered. "'Cause I think you don't truly understand what you've done. You've introduced something dangerous into our world. It's not just the lies, it's the fear you've planted. The idea that truth isn't enough." Jack clenched his fists. He wasn't used to being confronted like this, and it unsettled him more than he cared to admit. But Lyra wasn't finished. "The truth is," she continued, her tone gentle but firm, "you're not the only one who's been lying. All of us have been lying to ourselves. We've built a world based on perfection, but perfection is an illusion. We've never truly questioned our beliefs, never allowed ourselves to think that maybe, just maybe, we don't have all the answers. You've shown us that lies aren't just about deceit, or about the things we're too afraid to face." Mind raced as her words sank in. He'd always thought of lies as tools for manipulation, but Lyra had shifted his perspective. Lies weren't just ways to get ahead, they were ways to protect oneself, to shield from the truth. And what was the truth that Jack had been hiding from? The fear of not being enough? The fear of never being able to live up to the expectations he had set for himself. "Lies don't solve anything," Lyra whispered, almost to herself. "They just delay the inevitable. And sooner or later, the truth will catch up to you." The weight of her words hit Jack like a punch to the gut. The first time since his arrival, he wasn't sure if his lies could save him. They had gotten him this far, yes, but the more he relied on them, the more fragile his world became. And deep down, Jack knew Lyra was right. The truth wasn't just something that could be bent, it was something that had to be faced. Jack took a deep breath, feeling the tension in his chest ease slightly. He was at a crossroads, caught between the lies that had brought him here and the truth that was slowly creeping up behind him. Wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew. One thing for sure, his journey was far from over. Jack stood at the edge of the grand amphitheater, the soft hum of the alien city in the background. The air felt charged, as if the very atmosphere had become thick with tension. He had spent the last few days walking a fine line, continuing to spread his lies, pushing the boundaries of what the aliens could believe, while also trying to prove to them that deception wasn't just a tool, but a form of power. And yet, with every step forward, he felt the world around him slipping further out of his control. The strange thing about lies, Jack had learned, was that the more you told them, the harder it became to distinguish between what was real and what was fabricated. He had lied so many times on this planet to so many people that he had started to believe some of the lies himself. And that, he realized with a shiver, was the danger of it all. He had started this journey thinking that the power of lies could reshape the alien world. But now, it seemed that his very existence was becoming the lie he had created. The elders had warned him, Sereth had challenged him. And now, it was all coming to a head. Jack couldn't keep pretending that he wasn't feeling the pressure his lies had begun to unravel. And the alien world was starting to wake up to the chaos he had sown. As he stood there, lost in his thoughts, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Marcus, the rival human who had appeared on the planet a few days ago. At first, Jack had seen him as just another obstacle to overcome. But there was something about Marcus, something he hadn't expected. The man seemed to possess the same power to lie that Jack did, but with a cold, calculating precision that made him dangerous. Marcus stepped forward, his face expressionless, but his eyes held an intensity that Jack couldn't ignore. "You've been busy," Marcus said, his voice low and measured. "But you've made a mistake." Jack raised an eyebrow. "What are you talking about?" Marcus smirked, the corner of his mouth curling up in a way that made Jack uneasy. "You're not the only one who knows how to lie, Jack. You've been so focused on proving your point that you didn't see what was right in front of you." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "What are you saying?" "Aliens," Marcus continued. "They've been watching you. They've seen through your lies, Jack. They know what you're really after. Ash! Stomach churned. You're lying, he spat, but there was a seed of doubt creeping into his mind. No, Marcus said, his voice cold. I'm not. You're the one who's been lying to yourself. You came here thinking that lies would give you power, but what you didn't realize is that you've made them stronger. Stronger than you could ever be. The realization hit Jack like a bolt of lightning. It wasn't just that his lies had changed the aliens, it was that his lies had awakened something in them. Something darker. They had started to understand deception, and now they were using it against him. They were learning, adapting, and they were starting to turn the tables. You've betrayed them, Jack, Marcus said, his voice almost a whisper. And now they're coming for you. Jack's blood ran cold. He had known that his lies would have consequences, but he never expected this. He had underestimated the aliens' ability to learn, to adapt. What started as a game, his lies against their truth, was now something much bigger. The aliens had become the hunters, and Jack was the prey. Before Jack could respond, the ground beneath his feet trembled. The alien city, once so serene, now seemed to shift, as if the very foundation of the planet was starting to buckle under the weight of Jack's deception. He turned to look, but all he saw was a swarm of alien figures moving swiftly toward him. It was the elders, Sereth at their lead, her eyes blazing with a mixture of anger and disappointment. You've played your game, Jack Seroth said, her voice echoing through the amphitheater, and now you must face the consequences. Jack took a step back, his mind racing. He had thought he was invincible. He had thought that his ability to lie, to manipulate the truth, would always give him an advantage. But now, standing before the aliens he had tried to control, he realized how wrong he had been. He had betrayed their trust, and in doing so, he had lost everything. The power he had sought, what he thought was power, was now slipping through his fingers like sand. The very lies that had brought him here were now the very things that would destroy him. You're not the only one who can lie, Jack Sereth continued, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken truths. But lies come with a price, and you, Jack, have paid it. Jack's world was collapsing around him. The aliens were no longer the naive beings he had thought them to be. They had grown wiser, and they had learned the most dangerous lesson of all. The truth could be manipulated, just like lies. And now, in their pursuit of that truth, they were coming for him. Marcus stepped back into the shadows, his role in Jack's downfall complete. He had been the catalyst, the one to expose Jack for what he truly was. And now, Jack was alone, betrayed by his own lies. The circle of elders closed in, their glowing eyes narrowing with judgment. Jack's mind raced. There was no way out. No escape from the world he had created for himself. The stakes had risen, and the game he had started was about to end one way or another. The alien city had transformed. Once, it had been a place of calm, an oasis of purity, where truth reigned supreme. Now, it pulsed with a strange energy, a dissonance that felt as if the entire planet itself were caught in a conflict between truth and deception. The walls of the towering crystalline structures shimmered with the flickering glow of countless minds, as if the city itself had come alive, responding to the chaos Jack had unleashed. Jack stood at the heart of the central plaza, his back pressed against the now silent fountain that had once symbolized the unbroken flow of truth. He was no longer the confident manipulator he had been when he first arrived. The lies he had told, the web he had spun, had caught him in a trap of his own making. The weight of the aliens' judgment pressed down on him, and for the first time, he realized just how much he had underestimated them. Serath, the alien leader, stood before him now, flanked by the elders. Their eyes, once full of curiosity and intrigue, were now cold and unforgiving. Jack knew they had learned everything about him, his lies, and the dangers he had introduced. The city had been shaken, but now it was time to face the reckoning. The truth was no longer something they could simply ignore. It had become a weapon, one that would destroy everything Jack had built. You've had your chance. Jack Seroth's voice rang out, clear and final. You came here thinking that lies would give you power. You've proven that lies can disrupt, deceive, and destroy. But they cannot create. They cannot build. Jack clenched his fists, trying to summon the bravado he had relied on so many times before, but it felt hollow now. He had been so consumed by the need to prove himself, to control the truth, that he had forgotten something fundamental. Lies are empty without a foundation of trust to support them. I never asked to build anything, Jack shot back, his voice filled with bitterness. I only wanted to survive. Power is power, no matter where it comes from. You've learned nothing, Sarah said softly, almost with pity. And that is why you failed. Your lies have made us question everything, our beliefs, our existence, our very way of life. You've shattered something beautiful. As she spoke, the other aliens gathered closer. Jack could feel their energy radiating, their collective presence a weight upon him. This wasn't just about him anymore. His actions had triggered something larger, something that was bigger than him, bigger than his lies. A soft murmur passed through the crowd, and Jack noticed Lyra stepping forward. She was the one alien who had always seemed to understand him, the one who had challenged him to look deeper. She had seen through his lies in a way no one else had. But now, there was something different in her eyes. There was no longer the curiosity, no longer the softness. Now, all Jack saw was disappointment. You were right about one thing, Jack, Lyra said quietly. Lies are powerful, but they are destructive. Now, we must face the consequences of what you've done. Swallowed hard. For the first time since he had arrived, he felt a pang of true regret, a bitter realization that the power he had sought had come at too great a cost. His lies hadn't just affected the aliens, they had broken something inside him. He had tried to run from, had caught up with him in ways he hadn't imagined. The circle of elders stepped closer, their voices rising in unison. Jack, you must understand. We cannot allow this deception to continue. You must choose. Lies or the truth. You cannot have both. A heavy silence fell over the crowd. The weight of their words crushed Jack, and for the first time, he didn't know how to respond. He had manipulated the truth, twisted it to fit his desires, but in doing so, he had lost himself. The lies that had given him power now felt like chains, pulling him deeper into a pit he couldn't climb out of. Jack's voice faltered. He wanted to say something, to justify his actions, to defend the choices he had made. But in that moment, he knew there was no defense. There was no escaping the truth now. I never meant for it to go this far. He whispered, almost to himself. Sarath's eyes softened for the briefest moment, but her voice remained firm. We will not destroy you, Jack, but you must leave. We're so one world. Retro to soap with Jack felt his heart drop. He had fought so hard, and yet, in the end, he had nothing. No more lies to hide behind, no more games to play. His deception had destroyed everything he had worked for. Now he was being cast out. The aliens turned their backs on him. The elders moved away, their faces expressionless. Lyra, too, turned to leave, her gaze lingering on him one last time before she disappeared into the crowd. Jack was left standing alone, the weight of his failure settling heavily upon his shoulders. The alien world that had once seemed so pristine, so full of potential, was now irrevocably changed. And Jack knew that, in the end, the lies had been his undoing. He had come to this planet seeking power. What he had found was something far more dangerous: the truth. The city was quiet now, the eerie silence hanging in the air like a suspended breath. Jack stood at the edge of the vast plaza, gazing out at the alien skyline, which shimmered softly in the fading light of the twin moons above. The once thriving city now felt hollow, the gleaming structures seeming almost mournful under the weight of what had transpired. The truth, so long ignored and buried beneath layers of lies, had finally forced its way to the surface. And now, there was nothing left for Jack but the aftermath. He had been banished, not with a forceful hand, but with a quiet finality that left him feeling like a shadow in his own life. The aliens, especially Sereth, had given him a choice to accept the truth and leave, or face the ruin he had created. They had chosen not to destroy him, but to exile him from the world he had tried to manipulate. Perhaps for the first time, Jack understood that this was the consequence he deserved. But what now? Jack had expected rage, fear, or even a deep sense of defeat. Instead, he felt something else as strange, almost comforting clarity. For the first time since he had arrived, Jack no longer felt the need to lie. His mind, once twisted with schemes and half-truths, was quiet. He had been forced to confront the deepest parts of himself, the parts that he had buried under layers of deception. His lies, while powerful, had never brought him peace. They had only distanced him from the world around him. He turned his back on the city, the alien world that had once seemed like a playground of endless possibilities. His path ahead was uncertain, but it no longer mattered. In the distance, the stars beckoned, infinite and unmoving, a reminder that the universe was vast and full of new beginnings. The alien planet, once a place of confusion and manipulation, had now become a marker for his own transformation. He was leaving not just the planet, the person he had been. The journey had taken a toll on him, but it had also forced him to grow. In this world of truth, he had learned that even lies, and their ability to deceive, were fleeting. They couldn't create, build, or sustain. They only distorted. And while he had used them to bend others to his will, it was the truth that had changed him in ways his lies never could. As Jack made his way to the transport ship that would take him far from the planet, a familiar face appeared in his path. Lyra. She stood silently for a moment, her violet eyes searching his face, as if trying to discern the truth hidden within him. It had been her words, after all, that had planted the seed of realization. Had been the one to show him that lies weren't just a means of control. They were a reflection of his own insecurities. "You're leaving," Lyra said softly, her voice steady. Jack nodded, his eyes meeting hers. "I have too." Lyra didn't move, but her expression softened. "I think you've learned what you needed to learn?" Jack hesitated for a moment, then spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know who I was until I was forced to face the truth. I don't know what happens next, but I can't keep running from who I am anymore." Lyra regarded him with a mixture of compassion and understanding. "You won't be the same person when you return, but that's a good thing." Jack's lips curled into a faint smile. "I hope so." She nodded. "The truth has a way of doing that forces change. It's not always easy, but it's necessary." Jack took a step back, his hand resting lightly on the ship's entrance. He paused for a moment, gazing once more at the alien city that had been both a playground and a prison for him. The past was behind him now, the lies, the deceit, the manipulation, all fading into the distance. The truth, while painful, had freed him. For the first time, he could see a future that wasn't built on illusions. He could see a world where he didn't need to hide behind falsehoods. "Goodbye, Lyra," Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. "Maybe we'll meet again one day, under better circumstances." Lyra nodded, her eyes softening. "Maybe. I hope you find what you're looking for, Jack." With one final glance at the city, Jack stepped into the transport ship. As the engines roared to life, lifting him away from the world that had forced him to change, he felt a strange sense of peace wash over him. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was his to walk. The ship ascended into the stars, leaving the alien world behind. But Jack knew one thing for certain: the truth had changed everything. And for the first time in his life, he was free to embrace it.